Hey everybody, welcome to the first review in a new series I'm calling Books That Help Us Love Our Neighbor. I'll be looking at various books that deal with issues like issues that are really germane to our world today, like racism, the refugee crisis, those types of things. We live in a very complicated, confusing world, yet we're still called to love our neighbor. And so I want to look at books that help us to do that and to help us understand the experiences of other people, that help us maybe know what to do in kind of times when we just want to know, well, what should we do? Books like that. The first book I want to review is a book that many of you might have read already. It's called Just Mercy, and I apologize, it's mirrored for you. But Just Mercy is a memoir by the lawyer Bryan Stevenson, who is the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. The Equal Justice Initiative on its website says that it's committed to ending mass incarceration and excessive punishment in the United States, to challenging racial and economic injustice, and to protecting basic human rights for the most vulnerable people in American society. And I think the title Just Mercy it might have two meanings. There's one that's like only mercy, like he's pleading for the justice system to just show a little mercy to people who need some mercy. And then maybe more importantly, it's just mercy in the sense of mercy and justice that are lined together, of mercy which is just and justice which is merciful, especially for people for whom the justice system has not historically been either merciful or very just quite often. Several threads weave throughout this narrative. The biggest is Stevenson's defense of Walter McMillian, who was a black man convicted and sentenced to die in the electric chair for the murder of a white woman. And as Stevenson shows very clearly that McMillian could not have committed this crime, and yet he's convicted and sentenced to die anyway. And what is the troubling irony about this case is that the murder occurred in Monroeville, Alabama, which is the hometown of Harper Lee, who wrote the book To Kill a Mockingbird, which is about a black man wrongfully accused and convicted of a crime against a white woman. And it's a bizarre and tragic case of life imitating art, where in this town that celebrates its literary heritage with Harper Lee, and yet in that same town there is, with McMillian, there is a corrupt police investigation, prosecutorial misconduct of the attorneys, the prosecutors not handing over to the defense evidence that confirmed his innocence, judicial prejudice, where the judge moved the trial to a different county that ensured that the jury would be all white or mostly white, and then even putting McMillian on death row before the trial even began. Like these things, it just shouldn't happen, yet it did in this blatantly racist injustice that looks straight out of the pages of To Kill a Mockingbird. That's the big thread. There are other threads that are interwoven for that as Stevenson kind of expands his work, and as the Equal Justice Initiative expands its work. He defends death row inmates who were guilty of their crimes, but for whom their poverty or race or mental disability or all those together in some way contributed to their sentencing. To their an overly harsh sentencing or their conviction. He fights for prisoners who were sentenced to life without parole for non-homicide crimes committed when they were 13 or 14 years old. And he argues cases before the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, for things like the abolition of the death penalty for mentally disabled prisoners. So that's kind of all what's happening in the book. What should we make of Just Mercy, or what do I make of it? Well, first of all, I found it thrilling and moving. It's the legal drama with McMillian's case. It really keeps you on the edge of your seat. You want to know, there's all these twists and turns, and you want to know how it comes out. It was also really moving for me, just the fight for people who've suffered wrongly. It engaged me at an emotional level that was so much more compelling than philosophical arguments on the nature of justice and those kinds of things. So it was thrilling and moving. Secondly, I was struck by how deeply compassionate and empathetic Stevenson is. He wants mercy for perpetrators and victims. He wants us to show mercy towards criminals who are themselves victims, such as, in one case, a young teenage boy sentenced to life without parole for killing his violently abusive stepfather right after that man had nearly beaten his mother to death. And he's sentenced to die in prison for that. And Stevenson wants us to have mercy on that kind of person. And he attributes this merciful disposition to a formative moment as a child, when I think it was after church, and there was this boy, I think had a stutter, and he was bullied, and Stevenson kind of made fun of him, and his grandmother saw it and called him out and made him publicly apologize to the boy and embrace him and tell him that he loved him, and how much that meant for that boy, and that kind of set the tone for Stevenson knowing what mercy can do for people. Now, I don't know Stevenson's personal spiritual and religious convictions. I don't know about his church attendance or how he would identify himself, but his words about mercy sound like they have this deep gospel architecture. Let me read a few quotes. The closer we get to mass incarceration and extreme levels of punishment, the more I believe it's necessary that we all need mercy. We all need justice, and perhaps we all need some measure of unmerited grace. That's gospel language. Another one, I am more than broken. In fact, there is a strength, a power even, in understanding brokenness, because embracing our brokenness creates a need and desire for mercy, and perhaps a corresponding need to show mercy. One more, talking about the boy who he was making fun of, and his grandmother made him be reconciled to. He said, I thought of the little boy who hugged me outside of church. I didn't deserve reconciliation or love in that moment, but that's how mercy works. The power of just mercy is that it belongs to the undeserving. It's when mercy is least expected that it's most potent, strong enough to break the cycle of victimization and victimhood, retribution, and suffering. It has the power to heal the psychic harm and injuries that lead to aggression and violence, abuse of power, mass incarceration. Again, I don't know if if Stevenson is a Christian or what kind of Christian, but I really resonate with that grasp of mercy that just feels like the gospel applied to our horizontal relationships. The third thing I took away is that, for Christians who worship the God of boundless mercy and perfect justice, this book, Just Mercy, speaks powerfully about the troubling presence of injustice in our society, especially that injustice that's rooted in racism. He talks along these stories. He talks about issues. He talks about the death penalty, mass incarceration, sentencing guidelines, that kind of thing. And personally, he persuaded me to his views. It was compelling to me to come to the positions that he's arguing for. But I also want to say that, these are very complicated issues. So I do believe that Christians can hold a variety of views in good faith on these things. However, I don't think that any sympathetic reader can come away from reading this book with the belief that our justice system is always equally just to all people, regardless of race or economic status. I think he makes a really compelling case that's hard to dismiss, that there are problems in our system, and that those problems often have racial roots. And Christians of all people, we should be most concerned for true justice, and we should be aware of the ways that fallible human systems do not naturally gravitate towards fairness for those with less power in society. In the Old Testament, the law demanded that Israel not pervert the justice due to your poor in his lawsuit. That's Exodus 23:6. There are verses that speak of just his personal and passionate interest in fair justice. Like Proverbs 17:15, he who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both alike an abomination to the Lord. So when someone like Walter McMillian is punished for a crime he was innocent of, that is an abomination to God. He hates it. And James is particularly strong about warning about a preference for the rich over the poor. In chapter 2 of James, he warns against a church where the rich man comes in and the poor man comes in, and the way those two people are treated are so drastically different because of their status and the benefit that these people can bring the church, or just how we defer to those in power and wealth. That's Scripture itself compels us to take matters of justice seriously. And isn't the gospel itself the supreme and most beautiful example of just mercy? It's through the perfect life and the sacrificial death of Jesus Christ that in that God is displaying his wonderful undeserving mercy to people who do not deserve mercy. They deserve punishment. And at the same, but they get mercy, but at the same time, God is dealing justly with the real guilt. The cross satisfies the demands of the law. It's justice and mercy together in the gospel in perfect ways. And all those then who trust in Jesus, all those who have been shown mercy in Jesus, they should be the ones to show mercy to others. In Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy, it might help us to do that. Thank you.